Good morning. My name is Sherry Bailey and I'm a child support specialist on the outreach media team and the POP coordinator here with the Riverside County Department of Child Support Services. We are very excited to be hosting for the California Department of Child Support Services the VDOP Virtual Training Workshop. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Tori House, the Training and Outreach Coordinator for the California State POP Unit. So let's get started. Tori?
Thank you, Sherry, for those introductions. Hi, everybody. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Tori House. I'm a POP analyst for the state of California, Department of Child Support Services. I am the training and outreach coordinator for our unit as well, so you'll probably be seeing my face a lot in terms of training for the program. Any questions that you guys might have with a lot of the changes that took place this year, or just any historical knowledge, we are here to help you, myself and any of my other coworkers as well. On the line with us today, I do have my coworker Sakina Carter. She is also the training and outreach coordinator for the unit. And also on the line, we do have my manager, April Thoma, and she is the POP manager, and she's been here for almost about a year as well. So we're all pretty qualified to answer any questions that you might have throughout the presentation today. We will take those questions at the end of the presentation, so make sure to write that down. You can leave us a chat as well. And then at the end, we'll go ahead and get back to those, and then we'll answer those the best that we can.
And we're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2.
Okay, everybody, so let's get started with the presentation today. Again, as I just mentioned, if there are any questions throughout the presentation, we will be answering those at the end. So make sure that you're writing those down, whether it's on a piece of paper. You can absolutely send us in a chat, raise your hand, any indication that we know that you have a question, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll come back and we'll go ahead and answer those for you. So today, what we're here to discuss is the Parentage Opportunity Program, also known as POP. We are here to go over some of the changes. I'll go ahead and move us on to our next slide. So our objectives today are to go over some of the changes to the program. So that includes the new eligibility requirements. We also implemented a new form at the beginning of this year. So we'll go ahead and go over what that looks like and the requirements for the form to successfully have one filed. And we'll also touch on some of the POP available resources that are available to our witnessing agencies and available to our parents as well. So what is POP? That's usually the first question that we have here in the unit. And POP is a very simple program that each state actually has. And here in California, it is a free program that helps parents, eligible parents, establish legal parentage free of charge when they sign and file a voluntary declaration of parentage, also known as a VDOP. That's VDOP. So why POP is usually another question that follows up that parents have. And it's actually a really good one because a lot of parents seem to confuse the birth certificate with a VDOP. But again, the VDOP is the Voluntary Declaration of Parentage form that parents will sign and file with our office to legally establish parentage. And that's often confused with the birth certificate. Parents often think that their name on the birth certificate will give them the rights or give their child the rights that they're looking for. But unfortunately, that's just not everything. That's really just a piece of that larger puzzle. And so once parents actually sign our form and have it filed, that's when the legal parentage establishment takes effect. And some of those benefits that you see on the screen will come into play. One of the large ones that we hear in our unit the most is usually military benefits or health insurance, for example. So if you're ever looking to enroll your kid into your military insurance or the TRICARE benefits or any health insurance as well, they're going to be looking for proof of parentage. And that's not really just the name on the birth certificate. A name on a birth certificate is really just an identity document, while our document, the VDOP, once filed, is what will establish that legal parent-child relationship. So as I kind of mentioned, each state already has a POP program. They might not term it POP. It could be called something completely different. That's just here in California what we've chosen for our name to be. It's the Parentage Opportunity Program. But sure enough, each state absolutely has a very similar program to ours and definitely has to offer the same benefits, I guess, if you will, to each parent, which are again offering a free program for parents to establish their legal relationship between the parent and the child. And so if there's an establishment here in California and maybe the parents move to, let's say, North Carolina will absolutely uphold that document as a valid document, and vice versa. If maybe parents lived in West Virginia and then they moved into California would also recognize that establishment as a legal document. It has the same force and effect as a legal court order. So here's the fun stuff, you guys. And this is where we're going to get into really the meat of the changes to the program. Prior to January 1st, 2020, the program really hadn't changed much since about 1995. So this was a large change to the program in quite some time. So we're going to spend a little bit of time here. Again, make sure you're taking notes on those questions that you might have. Any scenarios that you're seeing come through your office or through your hospital, make sure to take note of that and let us know too, because that's going to help us better understand what's going on at your level so we can deliver the message out to you in an effective way that makes sense. So as we go through this, just make sure to take note of any questions you might have or common scenarios that you see come through. Okay, so who's eligible to complete the program? That first bullet point there where it says the unmarried birth parent and other genetic father, that's going to be our paternity bracket. So that's really the program 1995 through 2019. There's really not much that's changing there. Again, we're just expanding upon that. So that first bullet point is going to be the same population that we've been dealing with for about 25 years. It's that second bullet point there that does encompass the expansion of the program. And so the second bullet point, even though it's long, it's really just saying either two people, married or unmarried, who had their child using assisted reproduction, they are eligible to complete the VDOP as long as the spouse did not provide any donation of sperm and or egg. And so that does get kind of confusing because there's a lot of words thrown out there, a lot of big words thrown out there, but it's really a lot more simple than what it sounds like just from the bullet standpoint. So if you look at the other part of the screen there, that's actually a screenshot of a handout that one of my coworkers put together with our legal team to kind of be a helpful guide or resource for parents, not only parents, but for the witnessing agency as well, to really find out if somebody's eligible or not to complete this VDOP. So it's kind of like, if yes, go here, if no, go there kind of a thing. So it's very easy for you to follow along with. You just answer the questions truthfully, and then that'll let you know whether you should be completing a VDOP or not. If you find yourself in a scenario where it says not to offer the VDOP, don't worry, because you can still go through the court process to have paternity or parentage established that way. So obviously the question here comes, well, if we have people who are eligible, there has to be people who aren't eligible, right? I mean, there's the flip side to that. So we're going to get there, but I want to obviously give you guys some examples of really what it looks like for people to be eligible. Let's focus on who actually can complete this program. So as you see on the screen here, we have married different sex partners. Those would be people who would be eligible. So that would be the wife, or excuse me, the birth parent who's obtaining sperm donation or egg donation from outside of their marriage to conceive. That would make them eligible to complete the VDOP. Another common example that we'll see is married same-sex female partnerships. They are eligible as long as they're only obtaining donor sperm. If they obtained egg from within their marriage, that would make them ineligible. Because again, the caveat is when they're married, the spouse cannot donate egg or sperm. And then the last one, we have unmarried same-sex or different sex partnerships. Because they are unmarried, it makes it a lot more easier for them to navigate through this program without kind of wondering about the eligibility status. So more likely than not, any couples that are unmarried, different sex, same sex, they're more than likely going to be eligible to complete the VDOP. And obviously, if there's ever any questions about that, our unit is absolutely around to help. I'll leave our contact information towards the end of the presentation, so definitely don't hesitate to reach out to us. Make sure to ask those questions before we leave the presentation or the workshop today, and we'll get those answered for you guys. So here's the big one then. Who's not eligible? Because that's obviously going to be another population that we have to be considerate of. And so the first bullet point here that we're going to go over is obviously what you see as the surrogacy. So if you have same-sex male couples who are using a surrogate, they'd be ineligible to complete the program. And that's really for a very simple reason is most people who are having a surrogate, they're going to already have parentage or paternity established at the court level prior to the baby even being born. So they're more than likely coming to the hospitals with their paperwork saying, yes, we are the parents, this is the surrogate, and this is the situation. Whereas the VDOP helps to establish that after the fact. They've already established that before. So there really doesn't need to be an additional establishment with the VDOP because they've more than likely done that through the court process. So another one here, this one is going to have 2 sub-bullet points, and I'll go into a very brief detail because I honestly don't think we'll really run into this scenario, but the law does cover it, so we obviously want to talk about it just in case. So really here it's talking about the uncertainty that it could exist about a child that was born using assisted reproduction. And so what this first bullet point is saying is, the example that I like to give is I always use myself and my coworker just because it makes it much easier for me. So let's say it's me and my coworker Sakina, who's also a female. Maybe we want to have a child, but maybe we realized going through the official sperm bank is maybe too expensive. Maybe it's really costly for us and it's just not a feasible option for us to consider, but we really want to have a child. Well, we have a really good friend that we've known for 20 years, let's say, and they want to help us out too, and it's a guy. And so maybe we go through the unofficial way and we don't do a sperm bank, and then I end up getting pregnant. Let's say maybe 6 months into the pregnancy, our good friend who helped me conceive, maybe he realized he wants to be a dad himself. Initially, he was donating to assist me and Sakina to become parents, but now he wants to kind of be involved as well. Now we essentially have a 3-party scenario, and I'm the birth parent, but who really signs as the other parent? Is it the person who gave me the sperm to conceive, or is it the intended parent here, Sakina, who I wanted to have this child with? So we're kind of in a position of uncertainty there, and so the courts would need to work that out. The next one, again, like I said, I don't think it's going to be too common, but again, the law does cover it. What it's really saying is, again, going back to the example of my coworker, Sakina and I, and let's say we're together and we want to have a child. But this time we actually do want to go through the sperm bank channel because it's official and we want that documentation in place. For whatever reason, we just want to go through that channel. Unfortunately, maybe it's taking a lot longer than we wanted. Maybe we started a year ago and I'm still not pregnant and we were hoping for that to happen very quickly. Maybe we still do have that good friend who wants to assist us. And so we reach out to say, hey, are you willing to help? And he's like, absolutely. You know, I've been friends with you guys forever. I'd do anything to help you guys. And so now he's assisting us as well. Well, now I'm still going through the sperm bank, but I'm also going through this unofficial channel of getting sperm from my friend. And then I wind up pregnant, or I'm conceiving. The problem here is we don't really know how I've conceived. Was it through my friend who gave us his sperm, or was it through the sperm bank where I was getting the donor sperm from that avenue? We don't know. I've ended up pregnant, but we're really not sure exactly how and where it came from. So again, there's uncertainty that exists around how I was able to conceive. And so because of that, we would want them to go through the court process to work out parentage that way. Again, not a very common scenario. It's the 8th month into the changes of the program, and we haven't heard this scenario come across our office just yet. Not saying that it hasn't existed. We just haven't heard it here yet. So I'm very confident saying this probably isn't going to be a large scenario. So if this does happen to come across and you guys have any questions about it, always just reach out to us and we can walk you through that process. And same for you guys, any parents that are listening into the line, if you feel like any of these scenarios could fall into your life and you have questions or there's anything that you're uncertain about, absolutely just reach out to us and we'll do our best to assist. Okay, so we're continuing again on who's not eligible. Here we've kind of talked about this in the who is eligible. Again, it's the assisted reproduction when you're receiving spousal donation. For parents that are married, there cannot be any spousal donation. If there is a spousal donation and they're married, they're not going to be eligible to complete the VDOP. Any donation has to actually come from outside of the marriage for that couple or those partners to be eligible to complete the VDOP. So really what this is still saying is our marital presumption still exists. And we do have a little slide on that that we'll get into, as well as timeframes and what that means. And to sum it all up, this one is very interesting because it's basically saying you're not eligible if there's another parent that exists. So if there's already a parent that's either declared by a court order, marital presumption, an already filed VDOP, or some type of agreement that declares somebody as an intended parent, that would mean that there is somebody out there that has this establishment made for them. We can't then make another establishment. Somebody explained it to me in a very simple way that actually really helped, and was saying that if I've made my, let's say myself, I have an establishment against Joe as the father, just throwing out a random name, and I went and had child support against Joe, and he's been paying me for our child, let's say Lexi. And then maybe I'm like, well, Joe doesn't really give me enough. I'm not really liking this amount. Let me go after Patrick. Let's see if I can get any more money for Lexi. I can't do that. I can't double dip in those pots there. There's already an establishment for Joe, so I can't go after whoever else I want to. There's an establishment with Joe, and then that's that. So if there's already somebody who is presumed to be the other parent, or it has already been ordered as the other parent, we cannot then file another VDOP for somebody else with that same child. Plus, our office wouldn't be able to actually do that. We can only file one VDOP per child. So if there was another VDOP that was submitted to us, even if the other parent's name changes, again, it's still for that same child. We wouldn't be able to file that. We would actually call that here a duplicate. So kind of as I was saying, we have some of those parentage laws there. The first one that you'll see on the screen is just kind of basic, just basically saying, hey, you're eligible to complete the VDOP, and married parents can complete it as well, as long as they're using assisted reproduction. So you're going to find that in Family Code section 7573. 7540 is going to be our marital presumption clause, which essentially just says if the birth parent is married to someone else, that she would be ineligible to complete the VDOP because there's already a presumption that exists that establishes her husband as the father. And that's true even if the husband isn't the father. And we do see that a lot in our office, where the mother is married to somebody else, wants to sign a VDOP with the biological father. And unfortunately, that VDOP would be voided if it was filed, and the courts would void that later because, again, there was a presumption that existed for someone else. Kind of goes back into the who's not eligible because there's another parent that exists. That's that marital presumption piece to it. There are some time frames that 7611 will tighten, Family Code 7611. They'll tighten that marital presumption just to make it more complicated for all of us involved because that makes it fun. So the time frames there, it's 300-day rule. So if someone is married, their divorce has to be finalized, and then 300 days past that finalization would mark the eligibility for those parents to get pregnant and then be able to complete a VDOP. So obviously, like I said, it just makes it much more complicated, but that 300-day rule does exist. Why I bring that up is because we do get those calls where it says, oh, mom's divorce just ended 3 weeks ago. She's at the hospital now. She just gave birth. Her and the biological father want to complete a VDOP. But again, they'd be ineligible because that divorce would have had to happen 300 days prior to the conception or birth of the child. So again, the time frames makes things fun, I know. So if there's any questions about that, because we do get those calls and we really enjoy when parents, hospitals, any other witnessing agency reaches out to us, because we know the marital presumption can be a tricky piece, especially with those time frames. So we really appreciate when people reach out to us for that clarification, because we do enjoy walking people through that process and really trying to get them into the right avenue. Because what we don't like to see is parents signing a VDOP that then is later voided and it's causing them more troubles in the long run than it has good in that one temporary moment. So absolutely just give us a call if there's ever any clarification that we can provide for you guys. I did mention earlier too that if people are ineligible to complete the VDOP, that they would be able to go through the court process to establish parentage that way. And that still is an option, even if parents just don't want to sign the VDOP and maybe they were eligible. In California, for many parents, there are only 2 ways to establish parentage, and that's 1 through our program or 2 through the court process. So this is a good one. We decided to bring this one up because this was a change that took place about a year ago now, and for the most part it seems that this message has been communicated fairly well throughout the state, but we do still see that there are some people who have that outdated message. So I'm just going to take that time here now to put that out there in hopes that that does clarify some things for people. And what I'm referring to is, for a long time our program actually did allow for military fathers to complete a VDOP prior to the birth of the child. But unfortunately, they're not eligible to do that. Or I shouldn't say eligible, but there's, as the bottom of the screen does explain, is that there's no statutory authority that exists that allows anybody to complete a VDOP prior to the birth of the child. So our program was trying to offer some assistance if there was going to be anybody who would be deployed or just unable to make it at the time of the child's birth due to military reasons. We were allowing them to sign the VDOP, have it notarized, and then send that with mom who gives birth at the hospital, and then has that witness there, and then that's sent to us. And we were filing those for a long time. Unfortunately, again, though, in some further research, we did find that there wasn't really anything in the law that supported that decision. So we unfortunately had to reel back that practice. And so unfortunately, going forward, if there are any VDOPs that are submitted to us that have been signed prior to the date of the child's birth, we will have to return that back for correction. We wouldn't be able to file it. And that is true for military fathers. That's also true for terminally ill patients. We did, our unit about a year ago now, we did have an opportunity to submit for legislative changes. And those were two places that we did ask for the laws to be updated. We would like to see military fathers and terminally ill patients at a minimum be able to have the opportunity to complete this VDOP prior to the birth of the child. So we did submit for that change. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but government work can be a little bit slower, and sometimes changing the law really isn't as easy as kind of the blink of the eye. And so we have been minimally updated on that process. And so we are hoping for change to come from that. And so if there is anything that we have to communicate downwards, any changes with that, we absolutely will, and we will get that out to you guys at the hospital, all of our witnessing agencies, and to the parents to the best of our abilities. Okay, we're moving into some lighter topics here. So availability of POP, really what this is saying is if parents maybe aren't able to witness or have their document witnessed at the hospital, maybe they had a home birth, so they're not at the hospital to even pick up a VDOP, where are some of these other places that parents can find this form, be informed about what they're signing, ask their questions, have their questions answered, and then send that form off to us for filing. So on the screen are some other places outside of hospitals that the VDOP is offered. And that's going to be at the local county's child support office. And that can be your local county's vital records office, a public health office, that's the courts. Specifically, usually it's like a family law facilitator, a social services agency. Parents may also have the VDOP mailed to them. That's something that our office can do. We can mail out the VDOP to the parents, and then the parents would just need to take that document and get it notarized if that's what they would prefer. They absolutely can do that as well. So those are the locations outside of the hospital where parents can pick up a VDOP, have it witnessed, and then they can submit it to us for filing. I do want to make it very clear, though, that parents can't actually pick up a VDOP at a notary public. We can mail parents the VDOP, and then the parents can take that document and get it notarized by a notary. But all the other agencies that you do see listed actually have those forms on hand. You can pick one up at that office and have it witnessed there. And then those agencies will actually witness the form free of charge. Most notaries will actually charge a fee for their services. So just keep that in mind, parents that are listening, that if you do want to get the document notarized, there could be a fee, whereas some of those other agencies will do it free of charge. Okay, this is good for any new agencies that are on the line. If there's an agency that is attending this training for the first time to become an authorized witnessing agency for the program, welcome. So really this is the first great step that you could take, because this is how you're going to become authorized. You do have to undergo a POP training. That could be in a setting like this, that could be in a live setting. typically when it's not COVID. And so this is obviously going to check off that first box there. The second thing that you guys will need to do is just follow up via email. Again, our contact information will be displayed before the end of the presentation. Just follow up via email. Let us know that you've attended this training today, you want to be authorized, and then we'll work on our end to give you a 3-digit code, and that's going to be how we identify your agency when you're submitting those forms to us for filing. Really, the last thing I want to get across here, because I know this is probably the most important piece for hospitals on the line, is that very last bullet point that talks about the $10 reimbursement. If your hospital has an agreement with your county's child support office to receive your $10 reimbursement for every filed VDOP, make sure that that's something that you're working out and communicating with through your county level. Oftentimes those questions will come to us here at the state, but that agreement again is between the county and then your hospital or your agency. So we can absolutely get you in contact with your county's POP coordinator if you do have any questions about that, but we wouldn't really be able to answer any specifics about that contract. But it does exist. This is something that we do see all the time with local child support offices and hospitals enter an agreement for that $10 reimbursement. But most importantly, it is good to remember that it's for every filed VDOP, not just every VDOP that has been completed. If you want to know more information about the $10 reimbursement, you can, like I said, reach out to us, and then we'll go ahead and put you in contact with your county's POP coordinator for more detailed information on what that contract might look like. Okay, so some rights and responsibilities for the program here. As you can see, the fly-in that just came on the screen is the back side of the VDOP. The back side of that form will have all of the written rights and responsibilities for the parents. You must be provided this in a written and verbal format. So for you guys as witnessing agencies, please make sure that you are doing that. The written version is very easy. Like I said, the back side of the form, just flip the form over, hand that over to the parents and say, just read over this. This is going to be what you want to follow very carefully. Make sure you understand before you sign this form, because once that form is filed with us, it will establish legal parentage. And there's only a few ways to actually have that form removed. And we'll talk about that a little later in the presentation as well. So how you can provide this as witnessing agencies, how you can provide the rights and responsibilities in the verbal format. You can call or have the parents call the number that's listed on your screen. I believe it's option 3, then option 1, and that'll read that entire backside of that form to the parents in both English and or Spanish, depending on which option that they select. We do also have some POP videos. You might see a familiar face in that video, and it's about, I think, about 8 to 10 minutes long, and it definitely is a really helpful video because it does more than just go over the rights and responsibilities for parents. That video really goes into a lot of detail about the program, what it is that you're signing, why you should sign the form, if you're having any questions, maybe why you wouldn't want to sign the form, and what are some of those alternatives for you to follow in place of signing that form with us. So it's a lot of really good information. It's very helpful. Again, it's a little bit more detailed than just calling that number because it goes a little bit beyond just the rights and responsibilities. So those are available resources there for everyone. Those videos are available on our public website. That link is there on the screen. They're also available on our department's YouTube page as well. If anybody has any questions about accessing those, they can obviously send us an email, give us a call, and we will go out of our way to make sure that that's helpful. For you guys as witnessing agencies, something that I've noticed that we've been doing is we're able to actually provide that in a CD format if that's helpful. We do only at this moment have it available in a link format. That's just because parents a lot of times with their smartphones, it's just much easier for them to just click on that link and it'll take them to that video. But maybe your hospital would prefer to actually have it in a DVD format and have it play in the room for the parents. Just let us know if that's something that you want. We can absolutely work together and get that to you. Maybe you want it streaming on your department's website or your hospital's website. Whatever it is, I'm sure there's a solution that we can work out together and provide that for you. Okay, so here is our team. This is everybody. From the left, we have Jessica. In the red is my coworker Sakina. In the middle is my coworker Mark. To the right of Mark is our manager April, and then to the very far right is myself. So that is our team. We're a very small unit. It's just 4 analysts and 1 manager. So just to give you guys just really some fun facts and figures to put things into perspective. Again, we are pretty small and we do really do a lot of work here. About weekly, I'd say we file about 2,500 to 3,500 declarations. And that is just on a weekly basis. And that number definitely keeps rolling in every week. So we're definitely working hard to get those forms filed for the parents. And then thank you guys at the hospitals and any other witnessing agency for keeping those declarations coming in and getting those witnessed and answering those questions for the parents, because obviously it starts with you guys on the ground there with witnessing those forms. And so you can just see on the screen there just some of the numbers that we've done from 2019. Again, what we do on a weekly basis. It is a lot to keep up with just a very small unit of 4 analysts. We're busy, but we enjoy it. Like I said, we want to help you guys and get those forms filed. We do really enjoy all the work that we do here, and we enjoy working with you guys at the hospitals and the County Child Support Office and all of our other witnessing agencies just to bring this effective information to our parents. Okay, so I'll take a little breather here, because I know we've kind of gone through a lot of information. Remember, if you do have any questions at all, that you're writing those down, you're sending those in through the chats. So at the end of the presentation, we can go ahead and go back forward or go back through those questions and then recap some of those answers as well. At this point in the presentation, we're going to be shifting it a little bit more towards the actual form itself. I'm pretty sure now you've kind of gotten the gist that prior to this portion of the presentation was a lot of background information, kind of the why we do what we do and how we've gotten here. And so now this is really the meat of the unit here. Again, it's going to all be about the form and how to successfully complete one, have that form filed with us so you can have that establishment made, and maybe for the hospitals, that's so you can get your $10 reimbursement. Okay, so some things to keep in mind here. We do have to have pen, look at me. We have to have pen used on that form. If there is pencil used on the form, whether it's just in section A where the parents' information goes, definitely if it's in section B where they're signing, the parents are signing, we'd have to send that form back for correction because we're not able to file any form that's completed in pencil. So please make sure you guys are using pen. We'll take any color ink. Honestly, I know on the screen it says black or blue. Those are just usually the most legible forms of ink or colors of ink that show up on the form once it's scanned and imaged into our system. But if you want to use a green, if you want to use a purple, we'll go ahead and take it. We really just need it to be in ink, not in pencil. Keep in mind though, that because we do image these forms and scan them into a system, we do need the ink to be legible through a scanning perspective. So if you're using maybe like a soft pink, that might not be helpful because that information might not actually come through once that image is scanned. Because of that, we would probably send that back and ask for a different color to be used. Not that I've really seen any hot pinks or light pinks come through, just something to keep in mind. Usually the colors that are chosen are like blue or black. We really just need something that's legible and not pencil. And then again, we did touch on this earlier, the forms can't be signed prior to the birth of the child. So just make sure that all those sign dates are on or after the date of birth for the child. And if there are twins, there must be one form that's completed per each child. So we don't want one form being completed for 2 children. Not that I've seen that during my time here, but just something to keep in mind again, that there should only be one form that's completed per child. What I'll take a second actually to say, because I have seen this a little bit now, is parents and the witnesses will complete one form. Maybe they've named the child baby A. Let's just say that's the child's name. But maybe 5 minutes later, they're like, you know what? We don't like that. We want baby B as the child's name. Instead of completing an entirely new declaration, just strike a line through baby A, select the name that you want, in this case it's baby B, and then you can send that in to us for filing. What we don't want to happen is to receive 2 declarations with 2 different names for the child, and it's actually just one child, because both of those forms will get filed even though one is an establishment for really no one, because it was just a name change. So just keep that in mind when you're making those corrections on the form. Don't feel the need to actually complete an entirely new one. If you do complete an entirely new one, just make sure the other one is safely disposed of, confidentially disposed of, since it will probably have sensitive information on it. Just make sure that that's being shredded somewhere safely and confidentially. And then those forms need to be submitted to our office within 20 days of signing. That is a hard 20 days. Family Code does outline that. And unfortunately, we are sometimes receiving forms way past that 20-day mark. So that's just something to keep in mind again. Once those forms have been filed, just remember to be timely in submitting that to us, because it really is an establishment for that child. Maybe somebody was waiting to add their kid to their military, their TRICARE benefits, or anything like that. We don't really always understand or know really the scope, how large it could be, and why, or the importance of this document for a set of parents. And it's really none of our business, but really what we have to be mindful of is that it could mean more than just a form being filed. This could mean health insurance or not for that child. So we really want to get that form filed as quickly as possible. There could be an error on it, and if we wait too long to send it to us, then we have to process it and then send it back, and again, that's just further delaying that time frame. So just be mindful of that 20-day period to submit that to us, and that's from the latest sign date on that form. Okay, moving into the form here, some required fields versus the optional fields. Section A, there are 2 questions at the very top of that form that have been added. Those are new for 2020 and will remain through until there are any more legislative changes. And so both of those questions do have to be answered, and those are for the parents to answer. Witnesses, you guys absolutely may select the boxes, but again, you should not be answering it on the parents' behalf. So you should actually pose that question to the parents, let them tell you yes or no, and then you may select the box, but you shouldn't be making that determination of yes or no for them. And the parents are also very welcome to just answer their own boxes as they please, but we do need both of those questions answered. A long story short, because there were some legislative changes to the program, we have a need at our level only. We do have a need to know what a paternity establishment is versus a parentage establishment is, and the way that we figured out how we can differentiate the two is by asking those questions, and determining how the answers or the questions are responded to will let us know whether it's paternity or parentage. It has nothing to do with eligibility. Again, that's just something that we need to know here at a departmental level. Okay, so some more required fields. Again, that was just the top of section A. So the bottom part of section A is going to ask for child's information and birth parent information, as well as the other parent information. Section B is going to be where the parents will sign and date that form. Section C is for the witnessing agency to sign and date the form, as well as leave their agency name, their agency address. And section D is for the notary. So if the parents do take that document to get it notarized, the notary will complete section D. So we'll go ahead and go through each section of that form and point out where those required fields are, where those optional fields are, and how to complete it successfully to get that form filed with us. Okay, so again, this is section A here. We'll go with child's information, birth parent, and then other parent. So we'll just work our way down the form here. If there are any questions through any portion of this form, or maybe there's a section that you might just have a question on, make sure to just leave that in the chat for us, write that down, so when we do take those questions at the end of the presentation, you'll have that ready for it. So we have the child's first and last name here. I'll take a break just to mention, I really hope we have some Game of Thrones fans on the call with us today. My coworker and I, when we were putting this together, we are absolutely diehard Game of Thrones fans. So you will be seeing some of those references there. I hope you enjoy them just as much as we did when we were making this presentation. I still enjoy it today, even looking over it. Okay, so required fields, everything that pops up right now will be a required field. Anything that's left blank will be optional, and we'll go ahead and call attention to that as well. So first and last name for the child is a required field. We do need that. We will sometimes receive forms that don't have a child's name. We'll get a note that says parents haven't decided, undetermined, whatever it might be. And while that's fine, unfortunately, we can't file a VDOP without a child's first and last name on it. So if the parents don't have a name that they've determined just yet, just let them know that they wouldn't be eligible to, or I shouldn't say eligible, they shouldn't be completing a VDOP at that time. You can give them a blank one and let them know that they are more than welcome to take that with them. Once they determine a name, then they can complete that form, take it to get it notarized, and then send that in to us for filing. Of course, what that means is that the other parent's name won't be put on the birth certificate as well, because technically there isn't a parentage establishment that took place. So that's just something for the parents to also be mindful of. We just can't file those forms without the child's name. Really, if you look at it, it's very simple. We're making an establishment for the child, but if we don't have the child's name, we don't really know who we're establishing anything for. So that's helpful for us. Obviously, we do need that information, so it is a required field. The child's date of birth is also a required field. Simply, if we're going to make the statement that parents can't complete this form prior to the birth of the child, it might be helpful for us to know when the birth of the child actually was. And so you're probably wondering, why is it in red? There's only two portions of the form right now on the screen that are in red. There's other text that's black. What is the difference? I'm sure that's like the raging question right now. And I can explain that. Anything going forward that you will see in red is actually going to be a common error that we see on our end when we are processing these forms. So why are you wondering why the child's date of birth is in red? This is very simple. We'll often see that the child's year of birth is either matching with the parents, or it's prior to the parent's date of birth, which I'm not the greatest at math, but I still haven't worked that one out in my head. So usually that means there's an error, and so we have to send that back for correction. So again, anything that you see in red going forward is just going to be an area on the form that we commonly are processing and see errors in. So then the place of birth, those are required fields as well. So for example, we're looking for the hospital name. I know that in the top in the parentheses, it does say hospital, home, etc. But those were just examples of what should be put down in that section. So what we didn't anticipate were for hospitals to tell us that the place of birth was hospital. We were actually still looking for which hospital it was there. So if you do put hospital, if you can just put a dash next to it and just let us know which hospital it is, that's helpful for us from a reporting standpoint. So please, like for example, on the screen, you'll see Kaiser Permanente. Maybe it's Kaiser Santa Clara. Maybe it's Kaiser here in Sacramento. Just let us know which hospital it is. And then we have the county, and then the city, state are also the requirements. County is in red, because that is a fairly common error. And as you see the smile come across my face, because we do process these a lot, and oftentimes we're getting USA or US is the county. And understandably, the difference is just by one letter, and it's an R. So if you're going through this form fairly quickly, it does make sense on how you could see USA or country, and you put USA in the county. But please note that it's not. That is not correct. So this is an example of, if there's an error on the form, how can you correct it? So we said that Willows is in the county of Winterfell, but it's not. Willows is actually in the county of Glenn. And so that is a way that you can make that correction. You just draw a slash through it and then write in the correct word or whatever it is. And then you can just leave your initials next to it as well, just to let us know that that was something that you corrected as the witness, or maybe it was the parents. So that's very simple there. I'll move along here to the birth parents information. So again, it is the first and last name that it's a requirement. Date of birth is a requirement. That is in red because we often see that the date of birth, again, the year of birth specifically, is the same year as the child or the parents were born after the child. Again, I'm still trying to figure that one out. And so we'll send that back for correction. We do have a fillable form that our hospitals and some other of our agencies are using as well. And we'll sometimes just catch typos in there. Maybe they told us that they were born, I saw somebody who was born in 0099, that was their year. And so obviously we think that they just meant 99 and the 00s were just typos. And so it's just little things like that too, to just be mindful of. Social Security number, it is a requirement that has been in place for about 2 years now, where we actually started enforcing the collection of those numbers. So just be mindful, any parents that are coming into your hospital, if they have a Social Security number, they must provide the 9 digits. If they don't have a Social Security number, they can actually select that box. They can put a check box, they can put the X in there, just any indication for us to let us know that that person actually doesn't have a Social Security number. The parents are signing under the penalty of perjury that they've never been issued an SSN or a federal tax identification number. If they have, they should be providing us with that number. The call that we take here a lot is, well, the parents forgot it, or they only know partial, maybe 5 out of the 9 digits, or maybe they only know the last 4. And while that's okay, that's just not going to be enough for us to file that VDOP, because we do need the full 9 digits, whether that's a 9-digit Social Security number or a 9-digit federal tax identification number. We do need one or the other, and it does have to be the full 9 digits. So if the parents don't know their socials, just let them know that you can give them a blank VDOP to take home. They can have it notarized at a later point in time when they are aware of all of the required information to be put on that form. We wouldn't be able to file it. We do still, not that many, but we will occasionally get a few forms that say unknown. We will send that back to the submitter for correction with a letter explaining that this is a requirement. It's a federal requirement. It's been a requirement since 1995. So we do actually have to collect those Social Security numbers when parents have them. So that is a requirement as well. And then a parent's full address is a requirement. The reason being is that there might be times where it's more suitable for us to send a form back to the parents for correction rather than sending it back to the agencies. In the time that the parents go to a notary, we can only send it back to the parents in that case. So we do need to have a full, complete, current mailing address, because if we ever need to communicate with the parents and maybe they don't provide an email address or a phone number, our only means of communication is that mailing address. And so for it to be accurate could really mean the difference of an establishment versus a non-establishment. So making sure that parents are providing a full and complete mailing address is very helpful. Just make sure to emphasize that it's just a mailing address. The question that we often will get then is, well, what if the parents are homeless? If they can absolutely leave us a P.O. box. Each county has like a general mailbox that they can leave that information on there as well. Maybe they receive mail at their friend's house, their mom's house, their cousin's house, whoever. They can put that person's mailing address, even though that might not be their physical address. Again, we are just looking for where we can send mail to. Doesn't have to be where that person resides. And all of that is true for the other parent as well. Something that we didn't actually build a slide into because we didn't anticipate needing to until kind of seeing the changes play out this year. So I do want to take a moment just to say, let's see if I can move my mouse over here. Birth parent information, that should be for the person who is giving birth. Oftentimes we are posed that question, well, who signs as the birth parent, who signs as the other parent? I believe there are definitions on the back of the form, but I'll clarify it here as well. The birth parent should be completed by the person who is giving birth to the child. The other parent who did not give birth to the child or children should be completing that section. Oftentimes we'll see the other parent complete the birth parent complete the other parent. And if we do catch that, we'll try to call that out just for an additional layer of verification. But again, just make sure that for you guys as witnesses, and then for the parents that you as the birth parent, if you're giving birth, that's the section you're completing. And then the other parent should be the person who didn't give birth, and that should be the section that they're completing and signing. If there's any questions, any further clarification that we can provide, always just give us a call, shoot us a quick email, and we're pretty responsive. I'd say right now, just because of COVID and our limited time in office, it's probably easier to send us an email because we're not in office to answer the phone call. We're in office very limited times. We are checking those voicemails and returning those phone calls, but I think you might get a faster response time right now if you do email us. And again, that contact information will be on the screen. Optional fields, so the very few things that are optional have populated on the screen for you there. So those are middle names, that is the multiple birth section. So if there are twins, or if there's not a twin, it's just a single birth, you don't have to fill that section out. You can leave it blank. You can put NA, you can put single, whatever you prefer, but it is an optional field. Why we would actually prefer if there are twins, triplets, so on. If there's multiples, we do like that to be indicated in that section. Long story short, for data validation, that just makes it very easier for us, much easier for us, because believe it or not, there have been instances where parents have named their twins the same name, and sometimes that poses a problem from us from a data perspective to know, well, is this one VDOP, or is it 2 VDOPs for one child, or is this really 2 children? So that kind of indication to let us know that they're twins, triplets, something like that, that's helpful for us to let us know, to ensure the integrity of the documents that we're filing. So the multiple birth section, the country is an optional field. We really only input that country field in hopes that that would eliminate some of the errors above in that county box. Again, because most of the submissions in the county box were the country, so now we've added that box in hopes that that does mitigate that. And then emails and phone numbers are optional fields as well, and that is all for section A. So section B and section C is what we'll be looking at now, again, staying on the topic of required fields. Section B, again, is for where the birth parent and the other parent will come down and sign that they've read their rights and responsibilities, they understand what they're signing, and the responsibilities that will come from that once it is filed with us. They'll date their signature, and then section C will be for the witness. So why we see that this is in red is honestly just because they're missing sometimes. That's really just it. Sometimes we don't have a signature from the other parent or the birth parent. And the dates are really simple just because oftentimes they just don't match. Maybe one, for example, will say February 14th, 2020. The other one might say February 14th, 2019. Something very simple. Usually that's what we see. It's just a date that's not matching. Sometimes they're missing, but more common than not, it's just that they're not matching. So just make sure to give a second review, make sure all of those dates match and that both parents have actually signed that form. Then in section C, we obviously need a witness as well. And so all of this is in red because this is where we see a lot of our errors. Again, just dates aren't matching, or just some simple information is either illegible or just not on the form in general. So we do need all of those dates to match, and that is both of the parents and the witness as well. We'll go through some examples in a little bit on when those dates can differ, but for the most part, we do want those dates to match, and they do need to be included on the form as well. The witness signature, witness printed name is a requirement. Oftentimes we'll just get one or the other. So we did separate that into 2 boxes. That was a visual change on the form this year. We now have a box for the witness signature, and then we have a separate box for the witness's printed name. So please make sure that you're providing both. And then we have a section for your agency's name and then your agency's address. Please make sure that you're providing a full and complete address as well. One thing I'll say here for the agency name, we do get a lot of acronyms submitted. For example, I'm just going to say, let's say DCSS is the witnessing agency. DCSS stands for Department of Child Support Services. Well, obviously we know that because we work here. That might not always be true. So for you guys at the hospitals, when you're using acronyms, for the most part, we can figure them out because we deal with them every day and we do get familiar with them. But being mindful that we do onboard new staff sometimes, they're not as familiar with those acronyms, and that does make it a little bit harder to process because now we're kind of searching our records to find out really who this person is or who this agency is. So it is helpful if we can have a full agency name rather than just an acronym, but if there is an acronym, it wouldn't stop that form from being filed. Just make sure that you are providing a full name and a full agency address. And then down in section D there, that is for the notary to complete. So you guys at the hospitals or any other witnessing agency wouldn't have to worry about section D. That's only for if the parents are going to take that document and have it notarized. The notary can complete section D. The notary can also attach a notary attachment, like an addendum, and that's something that we'll accept as well. But what we can't accept is like the front side and the back side stapled together. We do just need a one form that's double-sided. Any other attachments that come from the notary are acceptable, but if they're not from a notary, we wouldn't be able to accept them. Okay, so for section D, as you can see, there's a seal in the bottom right-hand corner. We are asking for you guys in the hospital not to utilize that area. Oftentimes we'll see that it looks like patient information, maybe that's being stamped there. I feel like I've seen a couple like driver's license numbers on there too. And I know that that might be helpful for you guys, but if the parents might need to take that document and get it notarized, now the notary doesn't have a section to put their seal in. And then we're also providing parents with certified copies as well. And if they don't take that document and have it notarized, we're putting our certification stamp in that seal box. So if there's text there, it does make it harder to certify in a legible manner. So just be mindful that that section actually has other purposes. So we're asking that you guys do leave that blank for us. And most importantly, I know this was a change that I guess can be confusing from a visual standpoint, because it does look like we're asking for more information in section C from you guys as the witness, but we're not really unless it's needed. So in 2019, a large amount of feedback that we received from our witnesses is that section C didn't provide them enough space to put all of their information in. Maybe parents or the birth parent was going to have their signature witnessed on January 1st of the year, and then the other parent was going to have their signatures witnessed on January 2nd. Maybe it was going to be at the same hospital, but by two different witnesses. Now they're in the old form, witnesses were trying to cramp in their information in that little section that we gave the room for. And so the biggest feedback we received was, can you give us more space? We sometimes need a little bit more space to write our information, especially if you want it to be legible. And so we said, well, obviously that makes sense to us. So we brought in a second section in section C for you guys to utilize only if needed. If there's a need for a second witness, whether it's at the same hospital or an entirely different witnessing agency, that's when that bottom portion may be completed. But in the example that you see on the screen, where both parents came in on February 14th, had their document witnessed on February 14th, there's not a need to utilize that second portion. So if there's any questions about that too, just go ahead and reach out to us for clarification. So this is an example of a completed VDOP, what one looks like when it's all good to go to be filed with our office. Again, you can see all of the required fields have been provided. We did leave the optional fields blank, again, just to show you guys that those aren't needed. You don't have to put in A if you don't want to. You can truly just leave that section blank. But that is a completed VDOP. If we received that form in our office today, we would push that through for filing, and our filing time usually takes about 14 to 21 business days upon receipt of that form. Sometimes faster. That's just about our average turnaround time frame. Okay, kind of what we were talking about already. We're moving into, at this point, we've kind of gone through each section of the form and how it needs to be completed, legibly completed for that form to be filed with our office. So what we're going to move into now are some scenarios on how that document can be witnessed in a valid way. Again, you're not always going to have each parent in your office or at your hospital witnessing on the same day, and parents, you might have a need to have your birth parent might have a need to have their document witnessed day 1 and the other parent on day 13. Maybe there's a need for that form to be mailed. We'll go ahead and show you guys or talk through with you some of those scenarios on how that can be completed. So our scenario here that you see on the screen is our one witness, one date. And really what that is going to be our very common scenario. It's going to be our most common, again, where both parents have come in, let's say, to the hospital. In this example, it's February 14th, 2020. They come into the hospital. Birth parent gives birth. They're looking to sign the VDOP to establish legal parentage. So they do. They sign February 14th, signatures, everything looks good to go. They have their witness who comes down and dates also on February 14th, prints their name, gives their signature, agency name, agency address, and that document is good to go, as long as, obviously, as Section A has been completed, as we discussed in some of the previous slides. Another reminder is just that that other section there that you're seeing that has like a little line to it, don't feel the need to complete that if there's not a need. Again, in the scenario of there being one witness on the same day, there wouldn't be a need for that bottom portion to be completed because there is just one witness. You'll see what it looks like when there are multiple witnesses and when that section would need to be completed, but please feel free to only complete that when there is the need to. For example, here, if we have one witness on different dates, this could be the example of maybe my due date was 3 weeks from February 14th. So I unexpectedly went into labor on February 14th. And maybe the other parent who is going to be signing this form with me, maybe they were on a business trip because they didn't anticipate February 14th being the delivery date. So obviously they get my frantic call and I'm like, you have to rush back home. You have to come to the hospital. I'm going into labor. So I do, but unfortunately, maybe the other parent wasn't able to get back into the hospital that same day of birth to have that form witnessed at that time as well. So that is just an example of what a scenario could look like in this example here on the screen. So in this case, we have the birth parent who has given birth on February 14th, and they're like, you know what, I'm ready to just sleep for the next few days. If we can go ahead and get my signature taken care of, that would be great. So they do, they go ahead and sign February 14th, 2020, and then you can see that they have a witness on February 14th, 2020 as well. That witness has provided their signature, their printed name, agency name, and agency address. So birth parent has a witness and that's taken care of. She can go to sleep and not worry about it at least for a few hours. Then the other parent comes in, let's say the next day, they're back in town, they're rushing to the hospital and they're just ready to sign the form. At this point, it's February 14th. So this is when that bottom section here of the form can be used, but only a portion of it. Because if you're at the same hospital, that's not going to change. So the agency name's not changing. And then the agency address isn't going to change. So there isn't a need to provide that information to us again. You've already given that to us up here. The only thing that we're asking if it's one witness on different dates is that you come down and sign your name for each date. So as we can see here in the example, they've witnessed the birth parent signature on February 14th and then came down on February 15th and witnessed the other parent's signature as well. So that way, while all of the dates may not match, we can still see that each parent has a witness, and that's the most important. We need to verify that each parent signing this form has a witness for that signature, and that the witness was at an authorized agency. Has that person undergone POP training? In this example, we'll say that this Kaiser has, so they're an authorized agency, and this form looks good to us. We'll go ahead and get this filed through. Again, most importantly, we can see birth parent and other parent have witnesses for their signature. Okay, this is where this extra space is going to be helpful. There's a lot of scenarios that could fall under this category of two witnesses on different dates. So I won't give a specific example because again, there are very many that could be in this scenario here. So let's just say that again, birth parent goes into labor on February 14th and they're just wanting to sign the form and get their portion over with. Maybe the other parent lives in a completely different county. Here, let's say this is in Willows, which is Glenn County, which is kind of in the middle of the state. And then maybe the other parent lives all the way down in Imperial County, and that's at the very bottom of our state. So there's a large distance there that could be causing a problem for them to be together at the same time while having this form witness. So what's going to happen is while the birth parent gives birth, they're going to go ahead, or after I should say the birth parent gives birth, they'll go ahead and sign their section on the form. They're in the hospital, they'll go ahead and witness it. And in this case, it was February 14th at Kaiser Permanente. I can see that because the dates match. There is a signature, there's a printed name, an agency name, and agency address. So again, mother's section or the birth parent section looks good to go, and that portion is going to be fine. How you can indicate that for us in the hospital is just with some parentheses, as you see that kind of came in on the screen now. So if you're only ever witnessing one parent's signature, just indicate that with some parentheses for us that say birth parent only. You can just say one parent only, BP only as an acronym, anything to just let us know that that's the only signature that you witnessed that day. That also helps the integrity of these forms that we're filing. And we'll go ahead and take that information to say, okay, it looks like the birth parent has a witness and that was their their only witness on 2/14. And so we'll be mindful of that if we were to receive another form from the other parent, or excuse me, the same form from the other parent that also has a signed date of 2/14, but not an additional witness, because you've already indicated to us you've only witnessed one person. So then here in the example, the other parent will come in, maybe the birth parent, again, the example I did give was birth parent is in Glen, other parent is in Imperial. So birth parent then has to mail the VDOP down to Imperial. So that's why there's a little time frame gap in between the sign dates, which is totally fine. So it looks like birth parent signed on February 14th. They have a witness, that is totally good. They mail the form off to the other parent, who now has to take the form. Let's say for the example here, it was their local child support office. And so they signed the form on February 23rd. I can see that they took it to their county's office and had a witness there. The witness provided their signature, their printed name, their agency name, their complete agency address. And now I can see that they've witnessed the signature on February 23rd, and then the birth parent had a witness for their signature on February 14th. Two different witnesses, two different agencies, but all the same, and everything is complete, and that form would be filed with us. So those are just some examples on, or different examples on how the form can be completed, whether the parents are together at the same time physically, or whether they're in two different locations and can't actually have that form witnessed at the same time. So we've given those examples. We can make this available in a handout if needed, anything to make that more clear for you guys as parents, for you guys as witnessing agencies. Just let us know and we'll do what we can to provide that information for you guys in a helpful way. Okay, we're nearing the end, I promise you guys. So there's just a couple of things to keep in mind, because I don't know if you remember me mentioning just some of the small errors that we do receive. While they might be common, they're always very small. Things like date of birth, where the child has the same year as the parent's date of birth, or maybe the child was born prior to the parent's date of birth. Little things where it's mainly at the beginning of the year, but we look at sign dates where, for example, this year it's 2020. For the first 3 months of the year, quarter of the year, we might still be getting 2019 for their sign date. So it's just little simple things like that, that if we take the time to double check through those forms before stuffing them in the envelope, more likely we're going to have a higher filing time frame, or a faster filing time frame, because there's less errors, less minimal errors on that form. So just if we're double checking that all of those required fields have been completed and that they're accurate. When I say accurate for our witnessing agencies, I really just mean accurate to the best of our knowledge. It is the parents that are signing under the penalty of perjury. So if I'm a parent and I told you my name was Brianna, I'm throwing out a random name, but my name is really Tori, you're just going based off what I told you. And so that's not going to be anything for you to worry about. Again, it's me as a parent, or our parents that are signing under the penalty of perjury. So when we say accurate, we really just mean to the best of your knowledge as a witnessing agency. Number two, if you guys could just double check that both parents and you guys as witnesses have signed that form. Like I said, we don't see too many, but we do have forms that come in that don't have a birth parent or other parent's signature on them. So just something simple like that to just make sure that they're signing and that they're dating those, and that those dates actually match, so that we can see that there's a witness for each parent. The third one, again, is just that all those sign dates match. And then the fourth one is that all complete agency information has been provided. We do receive a few amount of forms that don't have agency names or don't have agency addresses. And while we can obviously look up that information and provide that itself, that really is a moment that we like to take to send back to the hospitals or to our witnessing agency as a training moment to say, this is in section C, that is a responsibility of the witness to provide. So just make sure that you guys are providing us with your complete information there. Okay. This is helpful for you guys. If we have any county child support officers on the line, this is probably helpful information for you all. It's kind of just helpful information for you at the hospital, just in case you're asked this question. But who I find to be probably the most benefited from this information will be our parents. If you filed a VDOP with us, and maybe you change your mind and you don't want to have that form filed, maybe there's new information that would make that form inaccurate, then you can absolutely have that form removed from being filed in our system. You can have it canceled canceled, and we have a very fancy word for that. We call that a rescission. You can complete a rescission form. That's our DCSS 0915. Complete that, and once it's been valid and approved, validated and approved in our office, you would receive a letter from us letting us know that we will rescind that document. Rescind, cancel, it's just a fancier word to say that. So you do have a time frame to do this. And when I say you, I mean you guys, you parents, the people who are signing the form. There is a time frame that you have, and it's a very tight time frame. You have 60 days, 60 calendar days from the latest sign date on the VDOP. If I signed on January 1st and my other parent signed on January 2nd, it's 60 days from the 2nd of January. That is the time frame that is available for either of us to rescind this document. Rescind, cancel. So again, it's a tight 60 calendar day time frame. Either parent has the right to rescind. You must provide proof of mailing. So there isn't a need to have both parents sign this form like the VDOP. That's kind of a little different. One parent, the initiating parent who wants to submit for the rescission, has to have that document notarized, and then a copy of that packet needs to be sent to the other parent who signed the form as proof that you notified them that you were going through with a rescission. You can do that by a certified mail receipt. You can do that by a UPS tracking number, anything to provide proof to us at the state that we can see that you notified the other person who signed the form. So we do need that proof of mailing. And then for our minor parents, you have 60 calendar days from your 18th birthday. So you have, when you turn 18, that's when your 60 calendar day period would kick on. So if you're 17, it's not 60 days from the time that you signed. Again, it's 60 days from your 18th birthday. If you're 18 or older, it's 60 days from the latest sign date on that form. That form is available on our website, and we really urge parents to give us a call if this is something that they're interested in. Unfortunately, we do see a lot of errors submitted on the rescission forms that don't allow them to actually get filed, or they're not validated in our office, and most of them are not approved, and that document does stay on file. We don't want that to happen. We obviously want this to be easier for you guys and to have most of these forms being valid in our system and rescinded. So please give us a call, shoot us an email if you are thinking about going through this process, and then we can work with you on a one-to-one level in ensuring that you're taking or meeting all of the steps necessary to have that document filed with us. Okay, agencies, back to you guys, hospitals, witnessing agencies that are on the line. We do have a fillable form. If you're tired of writing in your information, maybe if you're like me and maybe don't have the best penmanship, you might like to type things in. So if that's the case, we absolutely have a solution for you. We do have a fillable PDF form. I must say, before I go too far into it, it's not an electronic form that can be submitted to us. It is just a fillable PDF that will still need to be printed for signatures. We can only file original documents with wet signatures on them. So the fillable form is there to save you time as far as in typing. It's there to help you with legibility if needed, but it cannot be submitted to us electronically for filing just yet. We are working on that. I promise. It is something that we are talking about largely, especially with COVID being something new for us this year. We're really hoping to have a change in the law shortly to allow the exception of electronic signatures. So stay tuned for more information on that. But currently, we do have to have these documents printed out double-sided. Make sure that you're printing these forms double-sided. There is a backside that cannot be attached. It must be a one-form, double-sided form sent to us, and it can only be the original that has wet signatures on it. You've printed that out, and you yourself has signed as a witness, and you've obtained signatures from both of the parents as well. Your printed name can be typed in, but the signature portion must be with a pen still. So again, as you can see some of the notes here, you must have a printed side or two-sided printer there. Unfortunately, if we do receive a form, which we do receive these forms that are just one-sided, those are stamped invalid, and parents would then have to do an entirely new form. And I know that that poses a lot of problems, especially in the day and age of COVID. So just make sure that if you're using a fillable form, you've updated your printer settings to print double-sided. If you want the fillable form, I believe our contact information is on the screen. If you don't see it there below, don't worry, there is another slide that will have it. We can email that information back to you guys as a witnessing agency, so just let us know if that's something that you need. Okay, so ordering more VDOPs, again, we do have them in the fillable form format. So if you want to type in your information, we can provide that. But maybe you do like to have the physical copies there in hand that have the colored sheets with them. That's totally fine too. If you'd like to place an order to receive a packet of those, you can receive a packet in English, a packet in Spanish, or both. Just let us know. We can provide you with our order form. That's the DCSS 0596. If you already have that order form, just go ahead and complete it and then fax it over to our fulfillment services team. You can email it over there as well too. All of their contact information is at the top of that form. That's a phone number, an email address, a fax, and a mailing if you need to actually mail them anything physically. So all of that good information is there. We're not the ones actually providing, or I should say processing that request. It's our fulfillment services team. So if you ever have any questions on updates for a status of your order, go ahead and ask that with our fulfillment team, because we wouldn't actually know the status of that. But we can absolutely forward your call down there or transfer you over to somebody who would be better able to assist you. Okay, POP publications. We actually redid these we took a lot out, which is probably better for you guys as witnessing agencies and even for the public, because we did, in my opinion, we had a lot of information overload. We had a lot of handouts for a lot of different topics. So we've condensed them, which is really nice because it doesn't give you any fluff information that you don't need. It just gets straight to the facts and answers the questions that we see here on a daily basis and seem to be the most common. So we have new flyers, we have new handouts. If that's something that you guys are interested in as a witnessing agency, shoot us an email. Our email is on the screen. They are available in a PDF version or format. We'll go ahead and respond back to your email with those attached, and then you can print them out for your use at your agency or your hospital. We have them available in both English and in Spanish. Parents, if you're interested in receiving any of our flyers or handouts, you can do the same thing. Just send us an email asking for the information we have. We can absolutely provide that to you. They are available on our website as well. That link is on the screen. So if you want to follow that website or that URL, that'll take you in to the department site, and then you can navigate to our portion of the website to find those handouts and flyers. But again, you can always just shoot us an email and we'll go ahead and respond to that as well. Our contact information is on the screen. You may contact us by phone or by email. We are very responsive both ways. It's something that I think we are very prideful about here in our unit. We do typically respond to emails within the hour, and voicemails we do tend to get back to within at least 24 hours. Usually same day is what we're returning voicemails for, though again, just with COVID and our minimal time in office has delayed our response time in our voicemails or returning those voicemails, but definitely we don't miss a beat with those emails. So feel free to reach out to us either way, email, phone. We are here to help you guys. This is for the most part the end of the presentation. I know we went through a lot of material. So what we're going to do now is start to transition into our Q&A portion of the workshop. So think back to some of that material that we went over. I hope you guys took the notes. If you have any questions, if you've already sent your questions in through chat, we'll go ahead and take this time to start answering those, and in hopes that we can bring you guys a resolution. If not, feel free to keep following up and we will answer those questions for you. If we can't do it today on the spot, we'll take your contact information and then we'll go ahead and work together as a team to provide you with that resolution and then reach back out to you at a later point in time. So I do want to thank you guys all for being here today in this new virtual environment. I know it's new for us all. This was new for me, so I hope the information came across very clear. I hope it was very helpful, and it's something that you can take back to your jobs, to your hospitals, to provide the parents with information that they need. And parents, I hope that this was helpful for you guys, so you know coming into the hospital or to your witnessing agency that you have more, you feel more informed about something that you're signing, and that you can come more prepared with any questions that you might have for us or for the witnessing agency as well. So thank you guys for being very patient. What we'll go ahead and do now is move into the Q&A portion of the webinar. To the Parentage Opportunity Program. So that also includes the form name that has changed. It's no longer a voluntary declaration of paternity, but it is a voluntary declaration of parentage form. Okay. So I hope that answers the question. I'll go ahead and move on to my second question here. It says, if your facility needs additional forms, how do I get those? That is actually a really good question. They can be obtained fairly easily. Just give me 1 second, you guys. I'm actually gonna mute something. I apologize. Okay, sorry for the small little difficulty there. So if your facility does need additional forms, there was a slide on that in the presentation. But essentially, there's 2 ways that you can actually receive those additional forms. It just depends on the way that you want those in hand. So we do have an electronic version of the form. And then we also have a physical copy of the form as well. So the physical versions can be mailed out, and you can use our order form, DCSS 0596. That is our order form to place an order to request physical copies to be sent to your facility. Those can be placed in an order for a packet of English or for a packet of Spanish, or if you need both, then you can place that order and receive both of those copies. One packet, I do believe it contains 100 forms, so just be mindful of that. If your hospital does tend to go through them a lot faster, one packet is just 100, you might need maybe 5 packets or so for the month. It really just depends. We also want to be environmentally conscious here, so please don't try to order more than what you're using. Like I said, we just want to be mindful from an environmental standpoint and not to waste any paper as well. So that's how you can obtain the physical copies. If you're really environmentally friendly and you like the fillable version, we can absolutely provide that to you via email. You just need to send us an email and say, hey, I need the fillable version of the VDOP, the DCSS 0909, and we can provide that as well. We have a fillable version in English, and it's available in Spanish as well. For the hospitals, the really nice thing about the fillable forms is my coworker Sakina worked really hard to deliver this for you guys, and she's actually incorporated a couple of requirements on the fillable form and some really nice tricks. So at the very top, there's a clear button that can actually clear participants' information. But the nice thing for you guys at the hospital, since you'll be the ones witnessing these continuously, what we made sure was to leave the hospital name, and agency address. So even if you hit clear, your agency's information does remain on the form, and it's just the participant's information that does actually disappear. So that's just a fun little trick that she made sure to be mindful of. Again, we're just trying to deliver really good customer service for you guys, so we hope that that's been helpful. To recap that, we do have them available 2 ways. You can place an order with our DCSS 0596, or you can request via email from us a fillable version of the form. I know that's a little long-winded. All right, so my third question here says, I'm a birth clerk and my concern is sometimes about the bypass of the biological father, that he may not want to be, or excuse me, that he may want to be involved. Is this something we should really be concerned about? It absolutely, I can validate the concerns to be had for sure. It's just unfortunate that there's really not much of a role that we can really play as far as enforcing these things with our parents. The best that we can do from our standpoint, or from your guys' standpoint as a witnessing agency, is to provide clear and accurate information to the parents to let them know exactly what it is that they're signing, their responsibilities of signing this form as well. So they are going to be signing under the penalty of perjury that everything that they're stating on the form is true and correct. And so while we might have other information or maybe these additional concerns, we do still have to take their word for what they're signing on this form. However, if they have provided conflicting information, let's say, that makes you really worrisome about really the integrity of the form, you absolutely don't actually have to witness that form. What you can do is hand them the VDOP to say, you know, I've been presented with conflicting information. I don't feel comfortable witnessing this form. I'll give you this VDOP. Here's some resources that you can have to take this document to get it notarized or witnessed at a different agency. But that, you guys don't actually have to have it witnessed there if you are being presented with that conflicting information. So I definitely understand the concerns that can exist or that can arise. But again, we just have to be mindful of our role, which is really to share that information and be that source of clarity for the parents. Okay, so I'll move on to my other question here. It says, recently in our hospital, we had a same-sex couple. It was a conception based on assisted reproduction situation, and when asked what type of assisted reproduction, the birth mother said a friend and a syringe. Do we just take the individuals at their word? That's a very good question. I actually also had a very similar scenario to that a few weeks back and fielded that phone call from another birth clerk. So first I just want to say, don't worry, you're not alone. These scenarios are happening, and so I'm just very happy that you posed that question with us today, because I'm sure if you've had this question, and of course another birth clerk did, this might be something that is going on statewide, and it is a good platform now to utilize this time to clarify really what we should do with these kind of concerns and these situations that arise while we're trying to witness these forms. So If you become aware that parents have assisted reproduction, really the follow-up question shouldn't be, well, what type of assisted reproduction? We are kind of starting to get a little bit deep as far as from the POP perspective. That might be needed for another function in the hospital, but for the perspective or the purpose of POP, really we don't need to know exactly why or what type of assisted reproduction was used. Our next question should be, well, did any donation come from your spouse? Because again, that's the key piece that will determine eligibility or not. If it's a couple and they're married, there cannot be any spousal donation. As long as that's true, they'd be eligible to sign the form. So really the key piece here is we do just take the individuals at their word, because again, it's the individuals that are signing under the penalty of perjury for this form that they're stating that everything that they've provided is true and correct. So really, there is a hold harmless clause for our witnessing agencies that essentially just states that the witness is just witnessing that the information that the parents put on the form on this date at this time. And so it doesn't go beyond is this information valid, and if not, then we have to hold the witness responsible. That's not true because again, it is the parent signing under the penalty of perjury. So just to kind of go back what I was saying a little earlier, you do have the ability to make that decision if you feel you've been presented with conflicting information. No, I'm not married, maybe yes, actually I'm married, something like that. You can give them the VDOP to say, hey, I have that conflicting information, I'm not comfortable, I'll give you this, I'll give you some additional resources, and this is how you can get that form filed if that is what you feel the best need is. So just be mindful that again, we are taking the parent's word at face value, and we just want to be that source of information for them so they can make the most informed and best decision. Okay. So let's see. My next question here is, can a parent take a VDOP to another country? That's a really good question, and they can actually. We can mail a VDOP outside of the United States. The parents, if maybe one parent lives here and the other parent could be deployed in another country, we can work with that as well. We'll mail the form to the parent here in the States, and then they can mail the form off to the parents in another country. So that's actually very common. We see that here a lot. Just be mindful that if any parent is completing a VDOP outside of the state of California, that also includes outside of the United States, that they would need to take that VDOP and have it notarized. So if parents are completing the form inside the state of California, the witness can be a hospital staff, a county child support agency staff, a vital records staff, court staff, and they'll witness that form free of charge. But those are only available resources to parents that are completing that form in the state of California. Anytime that they're completing that form outside the state or outside of the country, the document does need to be notarized. Okay, moving on here. All right, so my next question. So, on the box for the hospital or home, do you want the address if it's home birth, or do we just write home? That's a good one, because I think what you're referring to is when we were going over the form in the place of birth section, there were some examples in parentheses that were given. It says hospital, home, etc. And like I mentioned, what we didn't anticipate were for hospitals to just write hospital. We were actually looking for the hospital's name. But in the case of a home birth, that's very true. That's a really good question, because we will accept home. That's totally fine, because in that case, that was the place of birth. It was that person's home. More than likely, they're going to come down in the birth parent or other parent's information and put their full address in that section. So we'll go ahead and have that address. So they don't necessarily have to put their address up top in section A where the place of birth is. If they do, that's fine, we'll take it. But they are more than welcome to actually just write home in that section and then give us a full address down below in their section for birth parent or other parent. And then it says, what if the birth is at a friend's or a parent's home? That's good. It also, the same answer I would have to give, it doesn't necessarily matter to us whether an address is provided or just the word home in the place of birth section. So if they want to say friend's home, parent's home, a house, anything like that, we just need the indication that that's where the birth occurred. So again, addresses aren't necessarily needed in that section when there's a home birth. but they more than likely, if that's what they want to do, they can absolutely do that as well. Then, a follow-up question to that, were are PO boxes okay? PO boxes are totally fine. That's okay to put there in the place of birth. Again, if they're, well, I guess that doesn't make so much sense. So maybe not so much the place of birth, but in the birth parents or other parent section down below in the mailing address portion, yes, PO boxes are acceptable. Those are totally fine. If parents are homeless, I do know that each county has a general delivery mailbox that can be used as well. Parents can put that information out in that section. And again, it is asking for just a current mailing address. So if parents are or the parents signing the form are receiving mail at a different address than where they might be residing, that's totally fine. Again, they can put that address down. We're just looking for a current mailing address as a means of communicating with the parent if they don't provide an email address or phone number. Okay, I think we're coming down to the last few questions here. It says, if you are the witnessing agency and we are at the home birth, do we put the parent's address of the home birth or do we put our office address? That's a good one. So again, in section A of the form where it says place of birth, it asks for the county, city, state, and country. The question here is saying they're a witnessing agency. That's not, it doesn't appear that they're the hospital, but the parents had a home birth. Are we putting the witnessing agency's information in the place of birth section? And you don't want to do that because again, we are looking for the information of where the birth occurred. So in section A up there with the child's information, if there was a home birth, please indicate that for us with either home birth, home, or that home's address. And then down in section C is where the witnessing agency will be. So obviously, if there was not an authorized midwife who was present at the time of the home birth, parents are going to need to take that VDOP to another agency to have it witnessed. Let's say in this case, it's a vital records office. Down in section C, that's where the witnessing agency's information would go, and the place of birth information would stay up in section A next to the child's information. The follow-up question to that was also, should our agency name be our midwifery business or our legal name? That's a good question. I would say you can verify that information with us. Whatever we have your agency name as for our records are what you should be using. And at any time that changes, maybe you prefer to use the legal name, just let us know. We can update our records. We just want to make sure that we have accurate and consistent information. So just send us an email and verify, hey, what do you guys have as my agency name? And then we can look that up. We can send that back to you, and then you can let us know if there needs to be any changes that are made from that. So just send us an email. Again, that's askpomp@dcs.ca.gov, and we'll go ahead and leave our contact information for you guys as well at the end of the presentation here. Okay, last question, everyone. So it says, does the 20-day from signing start with the second signature date? That is a very good question, actually, and yes, it would. So I want to give an example of what this question is referring to, and specifically it has to do with, I'm sure, the 60-day time frame for the rescissions. And so if parents are signing, let's say I as the birth parent sign on January 1, but maybe the other parent signs on January 2nd. When does that time frame kick in for that rescission period? Is it on the first when I signed, or is it on the second when the other parent signed? And it's the time frame starts from the latest sign date. So yes, it would be the second signature date. So we would do 60 days from the second, not 60 days from the first. So I hope that clarified a couple of things for you guys, and I know this was a lengthy presentation. A lot of material was covered, especially if there were any newbies on the line. I'm very happy that we had the turnout that we did, and I'm very thankful that people have taken their time. I know it's very stressful out there with everything going on, being amidst a pandemic. I do appreciate everybody sticking with us today, taking the time to be on this call, asking really good questions for us to have that discussion with you and to clarify anything that we need to make you guys as witnessing agencies feel more comfortable at witnessing those forms and answering those parents' questions. And parents, I hope this makes you feel like you're more informed when you come to the hospital or wherever it is that you are giving birth, that you feel more prepared to sign this form or ask those questions in advance of signing. So thank you guys for being very present with us today. I also want to take the time to thank Sherry and to thank you, Marquise, and everybody with the Riverside team that has helped to make this possible today. As I mentioned, this is my very first virtual workshop, also during a pandemic. So there's a couple of new things going on here for me. It's been a very interesting experience. I've been very happy to work with the Riverside County Child Support Office. It's been very easy. I really am very thankful that you guys have reached out to us to provide us with this opportunity and this platform to share this information to the agencies in your county and nearby counties, and even to the parents, because that's really who we want to get that messaging out to. So I really thank you guys for working together with us and making this a possibility and a reality for everyone. So what I'd like to do at this point is, since we've recapped the Q&A session, I'd like to go ahead and end it here on my end up in Sacramento, and I'll go ahead and pass it down to my friends there in Riverside County. Thank you guys.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you to the California State POP Unit for partnering with us to make this virtual workshop a reality. Before we go, I would like to just mention we are hosting an employer workshop next Thursday, August 27th at 9:00 a.m. So if you know any employers that may want to attend, have them register and get more information on the website southerninlandregion.com. We are excited here at Rivco DCSS to have an informational podcast related to all aspects of child support and child support services. So tune in and subscribe on any podcast client and look for Coffee Break Rivco DCSS. We would like to leave you today with a quick video from First 5, one of our partners who wants to highlight the importance of the census count. Thanks again and have a great day.
Every California child deserves to be counted. Counting our children in the census means more money for the programs that support them. Include all kids and babies living with you, even if they're not your relatives. Because in California, all kids count. More information at 2020census.gov.